Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me with Phyllis Stoller this morning. Phyllis is a longtime executive in corporate America who has dabbled in travel, then got into travel. And by living her spirit of an independent traveler who has traveled with her son when he was at an early age, Phyllis started to understand the powerful connections that travel can make for people when they go to places that they haven't been. And it's interesting because Phyllis's career can kind of track us through how back in the day, quite a few Americans weren't even going to places that we consider very commonplace today. So Phyllis was going there at first, but now Phyllis is taking her travel groups, mostly women who are looking for, and it's actually almost exclusively women, the women's travel group, that she's introducing them to places that are phenomenal. So Phyllis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Richard. And what a wonderful event on Sunday morning in a very quiet city.
Well, I'm just going to let you know that my neighbor just launched his lawnmower. He's got a very small lawn, so I'm hoping that's not too loud. We're eventually going to start sharing my screen to show some of the pictures of where Phyllis takes her travelers today. And the thing about Phyllis that I really love and fell in love with when I first met her is that Phyllis looks at the women that are coming on her trips, and she tries to organize these groups so that there are staged during the trip moments where these women can start to bond with each other, so that the connections are not just the travelers with the destination, with the people they're meeting in the destination, but that the groups are bonding themselves and forming lifelong relationships. So Phyllis, when did you get into the travel industry? Because that was not originally your professional career.
No, not at all. My very first job, still in grad school, was at the New York Times. We never talked about this.
That's right. You didn't tell me that.
I was a researcher. We had the opportunity to move overseas. My husband and I moved to London. It was going to be for a couple years. We were going to play. It turned out to be 10 years. Our children were born there. We came back to the United States with two little children.
Two boys.
Two little boys,
Yep.
both with English accents. I had gone to business school in Great Britain and became a corporate attorney, a corporate banker, mainly because it interested me. For some bizarre reason, I liked accounting. I liked the whole idea of managing money. And I did that for many years. When I did not have to do that anymore, I had this idea of trying to travel with friends. I had 5.5 weeks vacation. I think we talked about this. My husband was still building his business, and he would say, I know you miss travel. I know you miss going overseas. Why don't you go? And I would say, I don't want to go alone. It's lonely going alone. I don't like eating alone. There's nobody to talk to. A moment came when I decided to start a travel group for women. I decided to start it in a serious, I'm putting aside 2 years of my life. I'm taking my personal savings, and whatever happens, I'm going to make this thing happen. And you know what? It did. That was 28 years ago.
Wow.
It exploded in size.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment when I knew I had something incredible. I had never told you this moment.
No.
We had I had a friend, casual friend, this was in Miami, who was in a new job as the head of catering at the Omni Hotel in downtown Miami. She called me. She said, I love what you're doing. I want to give you a party. It'll bring in interesting women, which is good for my job, and it'll introduce you to these interesting women. About 75, 80 women came, many from the Miami Herald, because it was across the street.
Right.
A woman stood up, stopped the crowd, and said, I am going to the Barcelona Olympics to cover it for the Miami Herald. I'm going alone. I have never traveled alone before. Is anybody else in this room going? Another woman across the room said, my daughter's on the gymnastics team. And the two of them connected. Immediately, The room became, do you like to travel? I love to travel. Do you know anybody who travels? Are you interested in traveling? And I knew at that moment I was sitting on something that had enormous potential. It's a long time ago, but even today, you will sit in a group of women who want to travel, don't have friends, who do travel. They have friends, but not friends who travel. And the minute something is ignited, it just covers the room. So that was the moment when I knew I had a fabulous idea, and very quickly that grew into a large company. That company I sold.
Right. Now, didn't you have a trip where you took one of your sons with you but before you sold the company?
Oh yeah, this is well before that.
Right.
As a corporate banker, I covered the state of Florida and some of the adjacent areas, and I flew all over the state.
Right.
This is going to date me, in very early days of flyer miles, I collected a lot of them, from renting the car, from flying around the Southeast. I heard about this new situation where you could cash in these miles for travel. I had a lot of miles, and they were on what was then Pan American Airlines. I asked everybody I knew, are you interested in taking a trip? Well, I would never leave my husband. Are you interested? I would never spend that kind of money. I don't have a passport. Who gave you permission to leave your family? I finally took my 9-year-old son. I took him out of school. We arranged for a little hiatus and some homework. We flew to Kenya on Pan American, on a Pan American Airways package tour. He was, he's in his 40s now. He was 9, a little blonde, petite child. About 2 days into our little package tour, which consisted of Nick, me, a woman by herself, and a couple. The woman by herself said to us, you know, your child is very nice, but I'm just not interested in having dinner with the child on my vacation. Okay. He was a child, he's a nice child.
I can honor that.
Yeah. At that moment, I thought, you know what? It's really fun to travel with a 9-year-old, but I have got to figure out a way to find other women who want to travel.
Right.
The end of that story is, it's kind of a fun ending. I always say when I'm giving a speech in a public place, she would love to have dinner with him now, because he's the producer and director of 18 feature films in Hollywood. He's a comedy writer, and he's just as much fun in person as he is on the screen.
Be careful who you deny when you're traveling. Be careful.
For her. Anyway, it gave me the idea. There have to be other women out there who want to travel,
right,
who never thought about it,
right,
who could be intrigued by it, whose lives could be changed by it. There are many, many women I've met, their life has actually been changed by the independence and sense of confidence they had by doing something for themselves.
So you sold the company.
I sold the company in 2007.
And then?
It's very interesting how these people found me. Again, I didn't share this with you. I wrote a letter to a tour company saying, I started this women's travel thing, and we have about 1,500 women who pay dues. At that time, we had dues. And I know I'm really onto something, but I'm a banker by background. I'm not a travel agent.
Right.
And I see that you are owned by a woman, and are you interested in talking to me? I never heard from her. When she died, her sons found my letter in her desk. They eventually bought my company. I then went on to do some other things because legally I had to. And then about 8 years ago, more or less, I started a second company, right, and I was allowed to legally.
Yep.
And with this company, we are strategic partners with a large tour operator, Tours.
Out in California. Yep.
California. This is important because we're the only women's travel company in strategic partnership with a US TOA business. Those are the 20 biggest, strongest, financially strongest in the United States. Right. And that gives us a lot of credibility, especially today during this kind of shattering crisis in our country, in the world.
So let's talk about the kind of client for any women who come across this video. How would you describe the person who seems to do the best being a part of your groups? Where did they come from in their most recent stage of life? Where are they at now? What are their travel aspirations that they seem to find you and fall in love with your groups?
We have all kinds of women. The one who, I guess, adapts the best is probably somebody who hasn't traveled, has no expectations,
Mhm.
is excited, is thrilled. Example, accountant from Coeur d'Alene, I think it's North Dakota, Coeur d'Alene.
Uh, Idaho? I think
I,
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Yep. She said,
Yep.
I have a passport. I've never used it. I don't care where you're going. I want to be on your next trip. That's somebody who comes with a thrill and an excitement,
An open heart.
found a way to enhance her life.
Mhm.
And by the way, she went to Morocco, the woman I'm talking about. So most people do very, very well. The difficulty comes in when you're in charge. You're an in charge person. You're the head of your department. You run a big company. Why? You're going to question the guide. You're going to question the itinerary. Why can't we drive there? I see on the map that it's a 6-hour drive. Well, the reason is that it's over the mountains and there are rock falls and no place to stay if there's a problem.
Right.
So that kind of person really has to learn to trust that this is well organized. So that's the kind of person who doesn't do well and the kind of person who does do well. Gosh, there have been so many different kinds of women. It's really hard to group them and define them. Young, old.
Do you find that you learned that lesson you just described? Do you find that your travel experiences or maybe life experiences made you sort of an open traveler who visits places and is flexible and adaptive? And do you see any connection between the way you're designing trips and who you hope loves you and yourself?
Very much. When I started this, Richard, it was for me.
Right.
It was a travel group for me. It was not going to be a nationally known company. It was going to be Phyllis finding friends to travel with.
Right.
Fun friends, non-whining friends, people who didn't have to have a chauffeured car, people who understood the idea of budget. It was for me. I think what I brought to this was a life overseas.
Mm-hmm.
This was a life I never expected to have. I had sedentary parents. My father was a golfer. I mean, the last hole on the golf course was as far as he was ever going to go. But I got to live overseas. I learned if you can't do it this way, you might be able to do it that way.
Right.
If you can't get an egg in the supermarket, you might be able to get condensed milk.
Right.
We learned to be adaptable.
Right.
We learned that the way we did things, we being Americans, wasn't always the way other people did it.
Right.
I learned not to judge. I think that's something that a lot of the women who travel with us have learned. Don't judge how other people do things. Don't criticize. Open your mind. You might learn something. You see people being buried at the Ganges River. You might think about spiritualism. You might think about afterlife outside of the religion
that
you were brought up with.
Raised in. Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, that's the thrilling part, is to see women evolve emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Women say, I never thought I could do this.
Yep. So now you design your group trips so that people can gradually maybe adapt. So tell us a little bit about if a woman is watching and saying, wow, I think I may want to go with Phyllis, but what's the experience going to be like? You've told me how you try to set things up so that the group can start to feel its way out and start to make those connections as early as possible. Tell us about, how you incorporate that into your itineraries.
Very good question. And I hope people listen to this. First of all, before you even look at an itinerary, you should feel you can ask any question at all.
Yeah.
No question is stupid. Really, no question is stupid. Now you look at an itinerary and you say, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody. Will I fit in? There's a format. It's not hard and fast, but in the beginning of our trips, you receive a list of everybody going. You want to speak to a few other women, and you should. We're happy to share emails, phone numbers with everybody's permission. You want to fly with somebody else because you've never flown overseas before. You might not even have flown out of your state before.
Right.
We're going to coordinate that. Towards the beginning of a trip, almost all the meals are included. Women talk at meals.
Yeah.
Even if you don't talk, you hear other people talking. We often have a speaker towards the beginning of a trip. Different from other groups, we want a speaker who's going to make you buzz. We want somebody to talk about human rights. We want somebody to talk about health care for women that will shock you. Because we want conversation to emerge from the speaker's input.
I want to go.
So if everything is set up so that women coming alone feel that they're not alone, that by day 3, 4, they feel comfortable saying, oh, you want to have a glass of wine tonight? Do you want to take a walk? We want everybody to feel they're part of the group immediately. And what I always say is at the beginning of a trip, there's a puzzle. The pieces are just disparate pieces.
Right.
At the end of the trip, there's a motorcycle outside.
That's okay.
The pieces are put together. There's a picture, a full picture with borders and an interior, and that's the group at the end.
Yep. I'm writing this down because that was beautiful.
It's very much the way I feel with WhatsApp. We have often on trips, women talking to each other, even from their hotel rooms on WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go to dinner. Did you sleep over? How are you feeling today? Can I borrow something? And that's so they don't have to even leave their hotel room and go walk down the hallway and knock on somebody's door.
Right. So you're accommodating the personalities. I loved how you said earlier, you said open to evolving, that a person can be, we like to say that a person can be transformed by travel, so that it's not just about absorbing these pictures and these, I went to the Eiffel Tower, I went to the Colosseum in Rome. It's that I came away with something, I'm evolving. And I also love how you try to incorporate local speakers who, by having these conversations and maybe some format of instruction, they're telling people about history or context or current events that impact the people that they're visiting to. It kind of slowly starts to get you to internalize that, and you're taking something with you. You're maybe evolving because you're learning something and thinking about something that perhaps the trip caused you to think about. It was the catalyst.
This is very un-industry friendly. I believe in every trip, you should have a little bit of a shock and a little bit of a scare, because
I love that.
What you're going to tell your friends about is, I got on a camel in Egypt. I was scared out of my mind, but I did it.
Right.
A little bit of a shock. I heard a man who'd been in jail talk about being part of an opposition party in a developing nation. I want people to come away with not just a souvenir, but a little scar. And that scar will remember them forever. Something they learned, something that shocked them, surprised them, maybe even hurt their sensibilities a little bit. That's so un-travel and tourism. But I do believe it's part of the experience.
Totally. I was just talking to my son Friday morning, I think it was. We were talking about he was going to go for a run. He's not living with me currently. And he was asking me about what should he eat after a run. And I said, well, when you run, you create these little scars inside your muscles, and how you heal those scars is why muscles get bigger. And therefore, what you eat, like protein, helps you heal. I said, but scars help you grow. And too often we think of scars as wounds. And what you just translated in your own beautiful way is that we should not look at a potential wound as something that not only can we survive from, but we can thrive from. That was so eloquent. I loved it.
I don't want people to feel that they're going to be scared on a trip, but
Right.
a scare could be something simple like, I'm in India, I'm staying at a 5-star hotel. I decide to go to the Ayurvedic spa.
Right.
I've never been to a spa before. I've never undressed in front of anybody before. It could mean something simple like that.
Yeah.
It would be, I'm in a market in London. I fall in love with some little object I want. I've never bargained. I've never had the confidence to bargain.
That's me.
I'm gonna bargain. So it's little things like that that give you a sense that you can stretch yourself a little bit. Not necessarily scare like, bang, bang with a gun, but something that's surprising.
Yes. I totally get that. So can you tell us about maybe one of the most impactful scares you've had from traveling that have helped you grow into the woman that you are today?
Oh, this isn't going to be very dramatic.
It doesn't have to be. Some scares are dramatic.
We moved to England.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my early 20s. My husband covered Great Britain for his job. I was alone. We rented an apartment, a flat as they called it there.
What part of town?
This was in Kensington area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was empty. Apartment was empty. We hadn't yet, bought anything. We were a couple of kids, really. There was a lamp and a bed. And the first night, it was dark. I was hungry. I had never eaten alone, let alone in a foreign country. So it's not very scary, but I walked across the street to a restaurant. I ordered dinner. I ordered a glass of wine. I was so nervous. I was so uncomfortable. It tasted so bland to me. Came back to this apartment with the one lamp and the bed, and he was somewhere in Scotland or wherever he was on business. And I wrote to myself, this is why you were so nervous. This is why you shouldn't be so nervous. This is why tomorrow you're going to go out and have another meal by yourself. And I wrote myself a story to myself. Yeah. And it wasn't scary, but to me at that moment, it was so scary. I thought about going to bed hungry.
Right.
So it's not, what's scary to me at age 23 would not be scary to me today, but it might be scary to somebody who's never done that.
Yes. I actually told a story like this live on video on this channel a couple of days ago in the middle of the week. I took a trip when I was working for a travel publication, Business Travel News. I took a trip to Switzerland. I flew in with 3 or 4 friends on Swiss Air. We get into Zurich. And a friend of mine who's was an art major and a writer as well. She was not scared per se, but she didn't want to go to Winter Tour to see an exhibit by herself. Okay. And when she first asked me, hey, Rich, do you want to go? There was like this little scare. It was like, well, I'm here in Zurich. And if I stay here, I can always find my way back to the hotel. I can go out and venture a little bit, and I had not traveled much internationally up to that point. But now you're asking me to get on a train, to go to another town that's much smaller, and we don't even know where the museum is. This is before the internet. This is like the early 90s.
And don't speak the language. Right?
Don't speak the language. And in Switzerland, it's German, French, and Italian. And I was a little bit okay with Italian, but I had no idea about German or French. And I think Zurich is mostly German.
Yes, yes.
I was a little intimidated. And Lynn and I take the train out. And we figured out how to find the museum, and it was such a find because it was a tiny museum. It was a Saturday morning. There was almost nobody there. There was one security guard. And I was having these intimate experiences with Rembrandt and Monet.
Ooh.
I think there was a Rodin sculpture, if I remember correctly. And Lynn was going to try to find an exhibit of some black and white sort of like cartoons that were done in a certain period of time by this one artist. So she was going off on her own, and I was wandering by myself. And it was like I had this little scar of fear. And then when she and I came back together again, and then went out into the rest of the city, this winter tour was a tiny little town back then. It's much bigger now. We went to a castle. We went to a pub.
Yeah.
We had such a great time. And from that moment on, I had evolved into a different type of traveler because I'd overcome my fear.
Something that women who watch this should understand also is that things can happen on trips.
Yes.
They can happen across the street right now.
Right.
And what you want to know is that you're in the hands of professional people who know how to handle anything. An accident, a sickness, a lost passport, a lost everything, a guy getting lost with everything. You need to know ahead of time that you are with somebody who can take control right away with a smile and get you out of whatever the situation is.
How many tours have you led in your career?
Well, first of all, I don't lead them all.
Right.
We have a lot of other people who work here. I don't even know. 100 maybe? I really don't know.
You've done 100.
Easy places.
Yep.
London would be easy for me because it's a second home. I've led them in tough places like Timbuktu. You know, I've led them, very remote places.
And you're working with local guides who are vetted by your company, by the partner you work with.
They're licensed. They're insured. They can deal with anything. They are experienced. They are told when we hire people, by the way, we hire differently. What I tell a guide, because I interview a lot of people online also. You are going to be with a group of smart women. They are going to ask you difficult questions.
Right.
They're going to expect real answers to difficult questions as much as you can politically share.
Right.
If you want to tell some jokes, fine. But this is not a whoop-de-doo, yuckity-yuck, crazy group. These are really smart women, and they want to learn, which doesn't mean you should be boring, and it doesn't mean we don't want to hear music. But if we ask you in, say, Iran, why did you choose to live here when you have a British passport? We want to know, to the best of your ability, why. You
told me that you know Yazd, Iran, which Ali Reza took us to last Saturday. When did you visit Yazd? At what year would it have been?
Well, I think your readers or listeners might or might know, we do European and exotic destinations. And every year I look for a few places that are very new to tourism. They might not be new to Europeans, but they're new to Americans. In 2016, we did a group to Iran. Yazd was included because it's a Zoroastrian area, and the Zoroastrians are very interesting, and they're another history. The amazing part of that trip was we were in Tehran the morning that Trump was elected. We were having we heard at breakfast who won the election. So our interaction with a lot of Iranians, who, by the way, speak very good English, were very excited that we were there. Thank you for coming, America. Thank you. Can we do a selfie? They couldn't be nicer to us. They just wanted to know if we were going to bring jobs. That was the question. So yes, we were in Yazd, mainly to see the Zoroastrian culture, and there was also some Jewish culture there.
Yeah.
And we visited a Zoroastrian, and he had his fingertips had charcoal on them. I don't know what he had been with, but it was very interesting.
It's, travel just opens you up to experiences and moments that you just can't you just can't predict how it's going to become a part of you.
Uh-huh.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can share the screen so we can go over to your Facebook page and take a look at some of your, okay.
We also just started with YouTube, and we've got a few videos on YouTube. Use professional PR. We don't have a cinematographer traveling with the group. We have a video because one of the women sent it in, or I took it.
Right.
They're all a little bit disconnected, but they're real.
Well, I am going to put it in now. I'm going to try to minimize us so we can see more.
Clever.
Let's see if we can see more of this.
I can see white and black right now.
Yeah. So now I'm moving over to, I want to show.
We have Instagram too with a lot of pictures.
Yeah. So now. I was able to do it the other day. So I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to go to, okay, so let's go here.
Okay.
Let's go there, and now let's share screen. That was my problem.
I don't know what you're doing, but it sounds impressive.
Oh, I don't know that it's impressive. Okay, so there's us. So now I'm going to share that, and hopefully you're starting to see your Facebook feed. Tell me if you do.
No.
Okay, that's weird. Why is
it being me at the bottom and me on the right? There you go. There you go.
Okay, good. Okay. How about now?
I see it.
Okay. So I'm really fascinated by this pavilion on the left-hand side. What is that a picture of? And I'm going to try to make it bigger on this.
That's very interesting.
Where is this? Oh, it's on that.
Going to be the major pavilion of Expo 2020, which is going to be in the United Arab Emirates. Right. It's scheduled for the end of this year and the beginning of 2021. We don't know right now if it's going to be rescheduled. We have a group going to the Emirates and Oman next March. We are adding several days to attend this expo. It'll be the first World's Fair in the Middle East. This is the major building. It's designed by, I want to say, Calatrava. The five of this expo are designed by the five top architects in the world: Richard Gehry, Calatrava, Rogers. Forgive me the other two, but it is going to be probably the most spectacular World's Fair ever mounted. Therefore, our trip will include a couple days there. The trip this year did not. Next year's will. And that's what that is. It's the main building. It represents a falcon with its wings open. Now I think I lost you, Richard. I think we lost you, and I'll keep talking. I love to talk about travel. There we go. Okay. This is our group in Egypt in December, a couple of months ago. They are in front of the pyramids, and I'm going to guess that the picture was arranged by the guide because it's a really nice picture. I mean, this isn't just a bunch of us saying, hey, put me in the picture. So you can see from the picture that different ages, different looks, different backgrounds, very casual. That's another thing that makes women feel welcomed. Come in things that are really comfortable and casual. This is not a fashion show. So that's where that is. It's outside of Cairo in front of the pyramids.
Now, Cairo and Egypt, they were hoping to launch this year the new Egypt Museum that was going to house, be the first time that all of Egypt's antiquities that are available for display would be under one roof. Mm-hmm. And I just heard that they're moving that obviously to 2021. What a shame. Yeah. Have you heard anything about it and what that's going to mean for an experience like this in the future?
No, I haven't actually heard anything about it. I mean, the Cairo Museum itself, even though a little dusty and old, contained incredible things.
Yeah.
I was just reading in one of the New Yorker articles about how they've been able to detect a virus in one of the Ramses from about 1000 BC. So that was kind of a cool connection.
It
But no,
is.
and our trip includes Alexandria, which is a newer place to visit in Egypt.
Okay.
So what are we looking at here? I don't know.
That's Patagonia in Chile.
Patagonia, yeah. We do that trip. We have another one coming up in November
Uh-huh.
to Santiago, Patagonia, and then to Easter Island as an option.
So help me understand. Is there a different type of personality that wants to go to a place like this and someone who may want to go to Cairo, or are they all the same? Do you have repeat customers, or is Patagonia, deemed more exotic, so it entices someone who's more adventurous? Tell us a little bit about who goes on this kind of trip.
Different kinds of women like different kinds of trips. Price is an issue.
Right.
Flight price also is an issue.
Right.
A lot of women take their first trips in Europe.
Yeah.
Many of us are of European background. Patagonia is considered quite a non-adventure trip. It's gorgeous scenery, mild wildlife, fabulous places to stay. The food is quite European. So it's considered an easy trip. Then the only thing that's a little more onerous maybe is the flight time.
Right. So for everybody out there who thinks of the phrase Patagonia, thinks of beautiful mountains and wonderful vistas like this, no, you're going to a destination that's really not that big a stretch for you. And to some degree, those mountains remind me a little bit of the Swiss Alps. That hard cut, that edge to them.
The difference is there's nobody there. It's very sparsely populated. You can look at the most fabulous vista and not see another person. The air is unbelievably clean. We're talking about an area surrounded by ocean on 3 sides. The wildlife is not even used to human beings. You can drive right up to, they're not llamas. I'm going to forget what they are.
Alpacas?
No, it's a third. It's the same family.
Mm-hmm.
The food, it's, as I say, it's European food, but we're talking about the highest quality of fruits, vegetables, and meats.
Yeah.
Quality that's not imported into the United States, by the way.
Yes. I was talking yesterday with a friend of mine who lives in Rome. She's a culinary fanatic and she runs a culinary tour company. And I was telling her how it's interesting to me that when I cook my mother's recipes, they don't taste the way my mother made them. And I think it's because American industrial commercial farming is really taking the flavor out of fruits and vegetables. Because when I travel elsewhere, food comes to life. And I don't think it's the chefs, because I try different strata of restaurants when I travel, and even the most common restaurants, the flavors feel more alive. Do you find that, Phyllis?
Very much so. Now, Chile is a different situation because their agritourism is geared to a very high quality. Now, if you decide to go to Easter Island, which almost everybody on this trip will do,
right?
It's so remote. It's so different. It's so real. It's real. It's not a tourist place. You will find, but outside of fresh fish, the food is all imported and frozen. This is an island that is so remote, probably be the most remote place you will ever go in your life.
Right.
That it just doesn't have fresh. It has, I think it had maybe some pineapple, but that was pretty much it. So I would say for certain places, you are not going to have amazing food. These very remote places, beyond the little bit that's grown, let's say a place like Timbuktu, you are not going to have great food, and you're not going to go there for food. You're going to go there because it's Timbuktu.
Right. How far would this be from a major city, the scene we're looking at now? Is it a very long drive on a bus? How do you get there?
It would be a flight to Santiago, which is a modern first world city.
Right.
Chile is a very modern country. Modern, stable, no surprises. Then you'll be flying. I didn't look up the flight time, but let's call it 3 hours maximum to a city in central Chile. You're going south now,
Right.
and then you're going to drive. The drive, as I recall, might have been 3 to 4 hours. We stop, obviously, for a very nice lunch, like a barbecue lamb lunch at a very nice lodge, and we stop where needed. And it's a beautiful drive on a modern highway. So now you're in a national park going towards, say, the bottom third of the country, but you're still in a first world country where everything is the way one would think,
Right.
coming from the United States.
And what kind of speaker would you invite for a trip like this?
I'm so glad you asked me that. One of the women we have a lot of women who will call up and say, I want you to meet so-and-so. We had a woman on this trip who used to be a nun in El Salvador. She knew the nuns who had been murdered there. She then went to work in Peru, and her last job, and still her job, is she is a human rights advocate in Chile, and she worked under all the years of Pinochet.
Oh my gracious.
Came to dinner. She prepared a speech, and she handed cards around so we could ask her questions.
My goodness.
And we asked her was, this will sound a little, maybe a little religious. How does God create a person like you who will lay down her life for people from many different countries? Where did you come from? She said, I come from a tough Irish family, and I was brought up to do something. So that would be a speaker we had in Santiago, a human rights attorney who worked under Pinochet. Not an attorney. Wow. She runs a foundation.
How could you not be transformed by an experience like that?
How could you not turn to your brand new neighbor that you never met 5 minutes before at dinner and talk to them and say, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm hearing. That's something that brings a group together.
So tell us about Ethiopia.
I don't want people to think we only do weird places, but this is in southern Ethiopia. And I was trying to buy this guy's jewelry. We're in a market. He's a Semai. I think it's spelled Tsemai. I wanted that beaded stuff. First of all, he didn't know what money was. I put out money, US dollars he had no idea what it was. Somebody came over and told him what it was. Southern Ethiopia is not visited by most tour companies.
No.
It's safe. It's very simple accommodation. So if you go with the big guys, and I won't mention their names, you're not going to go to the Omo Valley. This is in the Omo Valley area. So that's me trying to buy his jewelry, which I bought his bracelets. Somebody helped. And then they took the money. The elder of the tribe took the money because he's going to use it for salt and things for the tribe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's try to find a more traditional destination.
How about a cooking picture?
How about that?
How about that? No, I don't. I'm not telling anybody what that is. So that's our Italian Tuscany cooking trip. We do it every April. And we spend the first night in Pisa, again, so the group can meet, have a good night's sleep. People are more at ease once they've had some sleep, let's face it. And the first day we do a tour of Pisa. In the late afternoon, we get picked up and taken to a private villa in the middle of vineyards. It's a 10-bedroom, gorgeous, restored villa. And the group cooks in the morning, sightsees in the afternoon, and then eats what they cooked for dinner. So here we are in Pisa. Every April we do it. The weather's nice that time of year, you can see. And who doesn't want their picture in front of the Leaning Tower?
Absolutely. I recently befriended a woman who lives in a small village of about 2,000 people just outside of Pisa,
Mm.
and got to interview Jessica live. She's Dutch, and she gave us an idea of what it's like to be in Italy right now, given coronavirus and everything they're going through. And it just amazes me the spirit of the Italian people. They made some mistakes at the beginning, and unfortunately, we're paying some of the penalties, like we are in the United States.
Right.
But the sense of sacrifice, and we're going to defeat this, and we're going to get back to welcoming people to our beautiful venues it's inspiring. And all
Tourism
the
is the name of the game for them for
Yep.
this year. Food, wine, olives, but tourism is it.
Yep.
Yep.
So now I'm going to have to start wrapping up, because we've got my colleague Aaron is going to be leading a interview with someone else at 12 o'clock. I'm scrolling through the food. So if we can end up
Looking at here.
if we can end up talking about the importance of food and what it means to the women's travel group in terms of what you said at the very beginning, that when we come together at a communal table, it opens us up to talking to each other and being close by. Do you have any favorite stories from an experience where you were dining together as a group and you felt the group coming to life because of that communal experience?
Gosh, let me give this a think for a minute.
And you can say every time, I don't know.
No, I wouldn't say every time. I would
Uh-huh.
say the communal experience comes when this is when people relax. And I say this to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken a chance. You're on a plane, you get picked up at the airport. Okay, nerves number one start to
Right.
smooth. Now you're at a meal, you're hungry, you're tired, and you are given a good, hearty meal with the kind of food that women want.
Right.
Lighter, less cream, less heavy. We like to have a good, hearty meal with salads and fruit and fish and something that you will remember and write home about.
Right.
And lots of wine. Lots of wine.
Lots of wine. You got me. I'm Okay, so I'm going to stop the sharing to bring the two of us back together again. So if you wanted to leave anybody with a lasting impression about how to get in touch with you and what's that experience like, because we are going to be traveling again. I don't know if it's going to be September. I don't know if it's going to be August, but I know we're coming back. What is your message to a woman? And you've told me in the past, it's someone who may not have someone that they can actually travel with, and they're actually open to possibly meeting other women. What would you tell them in terms of getting in touch with you now so that they're dreaming about that trip and starting to prepare themselves? Anything that you can leave people with today to say, this is how, in times of coronavirus, to not lose hope, but in fact to plan?
I think the word I would use today is trust.
Trust.
Trust us. Trust that we're stable. Trust that we'll take care of you. Trust that if something happens, we're in control. And trust yourself. We, by the way, have just started getting bookings for July.
Wow.
Yeah, now these are people who've traveled with us before.
Yes.
But trust yourself. And I think that's the word right now.
I agree.
People are afraid of bankruptcies.
Yeah.
People are afraid of not being able to cancel trips.
Yep.
Trust us. Trust our staff. We're stable. We're here. And we're here for you and for me.
One of my travel advisor friends who's been watching us, Nancy Damianis, and I just butchered her Greek name. She operates a very successful travel agency out of Astoria, Queens with her mother. She just said, "You're a fascinating woman." And she says, "Thank you."
Oh, thank you, Nancy. We'll have to have a coffee together. I'll come to your agency. We do that a lot. I'll come to the agency and talk to your women clients.
Great.
Travel if that was.
She is one of the dearest hearts, and her heart is open to traveling. She has a couple of clients who just they're like you. They're explorers, and they're willing to put themselves out there and become a little scared, but certainly within the realm of growing. And I'll tell you, I've got to get the Rosenzweigs to do an interview with me, because these two people will go anywhere. And Nancy takes them there. Phyllis, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you this last year or so, and I just wish you all the success in the world. To those two wonderful boys, I hope that they're healthy and they're happy through all of this, and that they can reunite with you as well as soon as possible.
Thank you, Richard, and the best to your family, and to everybody out there who's listening to us.
Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.